Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome back to week 6 of the Arc Academy for Qlik, brought to you by Arc Analytics. We now just rebranded to arcanalytics.co, so you can find us there instead of .us. But let's jump into today's session, which is Intro to Data Modeling within Qlik Cloud. And today we're going to highlight the purpose of data modeling, why it's important, the business use case behind it, the problems that it solves. And we are going to get a little bit into Qlik Cloud and do a little bit of that, but it's really not about the actual scripting component or the nuts and bolts of everything you're going to run into under the sun. It's really more about the value that it provides and things to consider when you're doing data modeling. So there's two main types of building data model in Qlik Cloud, loading data in here. The first main way is through the data manager. This is going to be your beginner to intermediate user that's going to use this. It's going to be more of a drag and drop style, more of your business manager, your business analyst type of persona. It's a lot more of a menu GUI function where you can, drag this data in, quickly confirm or deny the associations and apply them. You're letting Qlik do a lot of the heavy lifting and recognize those associations for you, right? The more advanced way, which we're going to make a lot more videos on here in the future, is through the data load editor, and that's coupled with the data model viewer. The data load editor is really your more advanced components. This is going to be really familiar to your SQL style scripting. Anything with Excel VBA formatting is going to be really similar to those types of functions. And it's just that you're using functions, control statements, fields, and table values. You're using all of those things in a parameters within Qlik script to get your data model to act and behave exactly the way you want it, so that as you start letting data flow through these pipes, everything comes out and modeled correctly as it should. So let's talk about what these look like here in practice. So here's a screenshot of the data manager, and I'll let Austin jump into this in 1 second. But the data manager is going to be your like I said, it's your user-friendly interface. You can see here on the screen, each bubble is a table that it represents. So in this case, they're linking the orders to products, orders to employees, orders to customers. And Qlik is picking up on these associations through these bubbles, and it's allowing you to either apply that assumption or you can go in and tweak how it's finding those references. So it's finding things in the tables like order ID, and it's trying to make those associations for you so that you don't have to go in and really go hands-on. So this is great for that high-level user that just needs to drag and drop 2 Excel tables in and get it moving. Next, we have the data load editor. This is more of, like I said, this is your advanced user. This is your cockpit here for scripting. On the left-hand side, you're going to have things organized into script sections. And as you break into a script section, you're going to have your script pane, which is basically your canvas to apply your variables, your functions, your fields, those loops, any control statements, anything like that. At the bottom, you have the option to either preview your outputted data, start seeing errors within a load, or even do debugging. And then on the right-hand panel, you have access to data connections. So you can pick, in this case, this screenshot I took, we have access to an SFTP server, the REST connector, one of our Postgres databases, a OneDrive thing, and some other things out there. So it really allows you to have everything in one place. And this is where, when you become more of an advanced user, you're going to spend most of your time here in the data load editor. When you are spending time in the data load editor, you're going to find yourself moving over to the model viewer. And this is something that you can pretty easily keep up side by side throughout the day as things go on, because every time you reload that data load editor, you're rerunning the entire Qlik script, and you're rerunning these associations. So each one of these tables are being associated, and this is exactly how you get a visual representation of this. Without having this, it's very hard to, especially learning how, it's very hard to kind of get an idea of how these things all connect and tie together. So the data model viewer is really where you're going to spend a lot of time visualizing the output of what you build in the data load editor. Last slide here before we jump into the live demo is just talking about some best practices here in really QlikSense, but QlikSense, Qlik Cloud, any in-memory tool for data modeling. And just going quickly through this list, we want to use QBDs when possible. So this is going to reduce our load time, it's going to make things more optimized on the actual load into the Qlik server. We want to implement incremental loads wherever we can so that we're not constantly having to pull down the entire data set each time we just want to pull down those recently changed values. We want to avoid loading in all the extra fields that we're not using. So this is what that load star means. If you just need 5 fields that you're working with, just pull in those 5 fields and you can work with the rest later. We want to use mapping tables. Mapping tables in Qlik are much faster and responsive than trying to do joins and other things in most cases when you have large data sets. Creating master calendars can really speed things up too, so that on the performance side, you don't have all these different dates working around in the background. You have one unified date structure. So we'll probably make a separate video on that. The next couple are more structural. You want to resolve any synthetic keys. In Qlik, anytime you have more than one value associating a table together to another table, you're going to make a synthetic key. And you either need to resolve those through compound keys or any other solution depending on your data model, but those are really going to slow things down. And in most cases, that's going to be a non-starter for letting that item go to a production environment. Same thing with circular references here. Circular references are when you have basically a key that connects to a table that always comes back and makes a big loop. So you're connecting those tables all the way back to each other, and you want to avoid that at all costs. That's really going to make things bogged down in the data model. Link tables are a big part of solving both of those items on 6 and 7, the synthetic keys and circular references. So you want to use those when possible to change different levels of granularity. And then last but not least, to kind of tie it all together, is really aiming for a star schema. And you can see here, option 2 is this star schema. And in most cases, this is really what it's going to be the final product. But this is kind of that good balance where in most cases with large data sets, as long as you can build a fact table and have some mapping tables or associations off to the side, this is really going to be your best bet 99% of the time. So, aim for a star schema when possible. Now, let's jump into it.
So now looking at a live demonstration of Qlik Cloud and where we have an app open here, we're going to start thinking about some of those items that JC mentioned, including the persona of someone that's needing to load in data into Qlik. So as a beginner, as a business user or someone that only needs straightforward data or associations between data sets, I'm going to use the data manager for that, as opposed to that data load editor, which is where we can do more scripting type things. So what I'm going to do is in my app here, I'm going to choose files and other locations. This is going to show me a few options for creating connections to data sources, as well as uploading data into Qlik Cloud. Otherwise, on the left-hand side, I can see all of the data connections I already have created. I'm also able to manually insert data and otherwise. I'm going to go ahead and load in some sample data here. And so after I preview this data and confirm I want all these fields, I'll hit next to load that in. And then what I can do is go up from the top, I can go to the data manager option here. So now in the data manager, I can see the table that I just loaded in. It's kind of floating here as a bubble. And this is going to allow me to see, if I load other tables as well, I can see them in here, as well as preview the data that's in that table down at the bottom. So now if I wanted to load in another table, I just need to go to the top, add data, and I'll choose it from a catalog here. And I'll search for the data set that I want to bring in.
All right.
And there we go. So now we have both of our tables in our data manager here. And I can switch between them, preview the data they're in. So now this is really powerful for, again, business users, simple analysis use cases and simple data, where it's straightforward. It comes out of usually a file, like an Excel or a CSV file, and we only need to do basic cleaning or transformations of our data, if anything. And it's also, we have this GUI that allows us to still associate our tables together. So for example, I can pick up any of my tables, again, represented as these bubbles. I can drag them over each other. And as JC mentioned earlier, this is actually Qlik is going to automatically associate these tables together based on the columns that Qlik has profiled and has recognized as being the same or similar, either in name and value or value. So in this case, in both tables, we have purchase order ID, and Qlik realized that it has not only the same name, but also the same values in it. And so Qlik rates this, if you look at this little colored ring here, as a pretty fair association. It's not all the way green, which would indicate a perfect key, but it's pretty solid. So now we have that. And now what if I wanted to peek at my data and actually change things up? What I can do is I can select this table. I can hit the little pencil icon to click on that to open that up. And now, not only do I see a data preview, but I can also see just some metrics down at the bottom here regarding the column that I have selected. So this orange bit here indicates that I have this column selected, which is just a row ID. For example, I could choose this column here, which is type. And so I'm seeing the values in that column here, just showing me kind of a summary of it. On the right side, bottom right, I can see a few different options for cleaning this data. So for example, I can replace any of those values in that column. I can set one of these values to mean null or no value. I can reorder these values in the way they show up in the table. And I can even split values. So if I had commas or dashes within my data, I can split that one column into multiple columns. So there are a number of ways of doing that. I can also add new columns, new fields into my table, and this would use that same expression editor that JC mentioned, where you can type in your functions similar to how you would in SQL or VB, Visual Basic stuff. So now, at the end of the day, after I make all my transformations and connect all my data sources, all I need to do from here is hit load data, and then Qlik will go through each of my tables, we'll load it in from the source, and we'll associate those tables based on how we link them together here. So again, this is the data manager. It's all GUI, drag and drop, very simple tooling, and very easy for newer developers or even business users to jump into Qlik Cloud and get started with simple data, simple use cases. But Qlik makes it really simple and gives you a lot of powerful tooling around that so that you can get started quickly.
All right, now that Austin has just walked us through the data manager, I'm going to wrap us up here on using the data load editor and data model viewer for data modeling inside of Qlik Cloud. So as I mentioned before, this is really the cockpit for the advanced developer. And what you're going to get into, I'll quickly discuss the layout and some of the features and functionality. And then, like I said, we'll make a separate video on this. But along the left-hand side, we have script sections, and these are going to run sequentially like some other programs do. We can add multiple sections. We can delete these sections. We can even add breakpoints inside of these sections or inside of each individual canvas here. When you are editing inside the canvas, you have a lot of different options, and Qlik has really good documentation on this, but we can do single line comments like this on line 1 with just a double forward slash. We have JSON style block comments where we can type out lengthy things with notes or documentation. And for this, I've just copy and pasted what was in the PowerPoint before. We can trace things out into our script so that they'll later pop up in things like our logs, or they'll pop up in our output statement so we can start to trace errors. And then down here, I have a sample where I'm just loading in a QVD file to show how the different coloring works between a table, a function, a field name, and then even a little bit further down here, we can see things like an auto number function. So you have a lot of different capabilities when you get to this point in the script, and it all makes it possible by being able to blend these different data sources with my different data connections here on the right-hand side. You can see I quickly have access to my Google Analytics, my data files with several QVDs that we've uploaded and saved and stored for different demos and different things. I have access to my OneDrive files, I have access to API connections, and I can create more as I need to on the fly. So really a great place to get started, and understanding how to utilize this script is really going to be your next step in the data modeling journey as you start to use Qlik Cloud. So if I run this script, I really want to show the data model viewer so you can get an idea of how these two things link together. And you can see here, I've traced an output into my script so I can trace an error or something in the future as needed. I can see how many lines were loaded from my QVD, and I can see how many things were loaded from my resident load there as well. If I pop open the data model viewer, it'll quickly render this environment where I can drag these tables around. And similar to the data manager, I can click on each table and I can see a preview, some of the values in here that makes it up. I can also see things like the distinctness, the density, and more information about the table that I'm looking at. This helps when you're really looking at larger data structures and really trying to build out something that's going to be suitable for your organization. So to wrap things up, as you start utilizing the different tools within Qlik Cloud, along your journey, there's going to be several different points where you can start data modeling with the data manager, the data load editor, and now using the data model viewer. All right, that's all we have today on this week's workshop. Join us next week, Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thanks, y'all.